And there is news today that some new developers have taken over ownership of the Plaza of Nations. The spot on False Creek's northeast shore has been essentially derelict for a number of years. Now the Vancouver Sun is reporting that the new developers have taken over, and they've got some big plans for some big towers. Joining me now is former City Councillor Geoff Meggs. Hi, Geoff. Thanks for joining me today.
Good afternoon. Good to see you.
So, of course, welcome back to the show. Take us back a little. What's the background of the Plaza of Nations spot?
Well, we've got to go all the way back to Expo 86,
Yes.
which was our World's Fair in 1986. All of the lands that the fair was held on were previously railroad lands that were accumulated by the province. And then when the fair was over, the province decided to sell them in a single parcel in what became a very controversial deal that ended in 1988 with the purchase of the property by Concord Pacific. Li Ka-shing of Hong Kong and his son Victor Li, who later were replaced by Terry Huey, who still runs Concord Pacific to this day. The company went on to do all of the development between the Granville Bridge and the Cambie Bridge and some bits around there. But the rest from the Plaza of Nations to Science World is sat rotten. Empty asphalt, Cirque du Soleil some days, maybe trailers for a big Taylor Swift concert, that kind of thing. And if you look at the development impacts to the west of the site, you see Yaletown booming, you see South Granville completely transformed. And if you look east of Cambie, you can see that Chinatown and the downtown east side are struggling. And so it's long past due, in my view, that these projects were completed because they were promised to be completed really by about 2003. So we're about 20 years late.
Yeah.
Early days, however, the Concord Pacific sold the Plaza of Nations to a Singapore firm owned by a gentleman named Mr. I haven't got the whole name here. I think it's Wee Hong Leung. And he held on to it until about 2022. In the run-up to 2022, he and Concord Pacific had a 7-year legal battle over whether he had ever agreed in any way, shape, or form to give that land, sell that land back to Concord Pacific. And finally, and he insisted he had never had any desire to do so. And eventually he was upheld. He said he was looking forward to developing the land, which had had all its rezoning completed in 2018. But then he changed his mind and now has sold it. What's happened here is that the current council's decision to remove view cones in a few cases has led to a massive opportunity for windfall gains for both Concord Pacific and the new owners, who are called Northchild, I think, and they're going to take it. So strangely, and I'll stop here, this project, which was completely ready to go, and was ready for enactment and construction could have started any time, is now going to go back to the drawing board while the new owners figure out how they can maximize even more revenue out of the property.
And the new owners, Northchild, have said that they will put forward a new plan for that waterfront lot. What do you think we should expect?
Well, I think we should expect them to seek what Concord achieved. Concord had also revealed its plans for its area, which is the area between Plaza of Nations and Science World largely. And they are now proposing a doubling of density, a virtual doubling of density, and towers that would have been in the 40-story range go up to 60 or 65 stories, which is a huge gain for them financially, and an increase of 1,500 homes, it must be said. Whether those homes contribute to affordability or not, I don't know, but I think it's important that we see progress finally happen here almost 40 years after the fair closed.
Well, and at time, this coincides with Concord Pacific announcing plans for mega towers in the downtown core. What do you think the impact of these developments would be for city residents?
Well, I think they can be managed through the planning process. And, the sites that Concord Pacific, for example, has acquired in addition to this one, the one that they have on the old Expo lands, are the Molson building at the south end of the old Molson Brewery at the south end of the Burrard Bridge, the whole St. Paul's Hospital site. And we see all around the region that these projects are getting bigger and bigger. Oak Ridge is very large. But the Plaza of Nations site is, I would say, about equivalent to Oak Ridge. And the site that Concord is now proposing finally to move ahead with is much larger again, would be probably still the largest project in the city until the Jericho lands come forward. But the impact is helpful to the city if it produces some housing affordability through the 20% requirement for non-market housing. It'll be helpful if we get a much larger park, which is in the plans for the Concord Pacific one, and it'll be helpful if we end this empty spot in the middle of the city where absolutely nothing is happening. We need to see progress here, but it's happening because there's an opportunity for a windfall, and I think voters need to be aware of that.
And you were a senior member of the provincial government that's been pressing for more housing. There is a huge windfall, obviously, to be made to the developer, but in the end, it results in more housing. Isn't that a benefit to people?
Yeah, I agree it is.
Okay.
And I think that under the existing city plan, just to be clear, I haven't been with government now since 1922.
No,
or 2022.
Yes.
But, I think it is a benefit. And whenever you can get the private sector to spend billions of dollars to produce 5,000 homes in an entire planned community, that's a good thing. And it's long overdue in this case. But it's not, it's discouraging to see the other developer, the one that the Plaza of Nations, who had already had their plans all approved, now decide to go back to the drawing board because they want to put up much taller towers. They were not expecting to lose money when they did the first rezoning. So the taxpayer here is creating wealth and value and is entitled to some payback out of that, not just the development itself. And I hope that's the kind of discussion that unfolds. There is money to come to the province out of this process because Concord Pacific never made the final payment for the land. Under the deal in 1988, they were going to pay a final payment to the province based on how much density they got over certain benchmarks, multiplied by the value of the increase in the value of Vancouver real estate since 1988. That's probably a large number. And the province could use that both to clean up the soil on the site, but also perhaps to put in affordable housing elsewhere.
While you're here, I do want to ask you about another topic, Canada-U.S. trade. Premier David Eby says the province is prepared for a tariff war with the United States. Now, as somebody who was former chief of staff to Premier John Horgan, what do you feel is the best way for BC to prepare for this?
Well, I'm not sure exactly what steps the Premier's taken. He's taken a strong position that he will defend BC, which is important. And I think I'm pleased that he has not done what some others have done, which is rush to try to get a table at the back of the room at Mar-a-Lago and somehow kiss the incoming president's ring. I don't think that's helpful at all. We shouldn't bargain with ourselves. We've already seen in BC tremendous negative impact from American indifference to our trade laws with the softwood lumber dispute. And so I think that, we may have to be prepared to put up with some hardship here to extract a proper position from Trump. And I think resistance to the tariffs and a willingness to exercise some leverage the other way is going to be critical. So I assume he's having discussions like that privately with business leaders and others who are in critical roles in the economy, because there's no way we can buy our way out of this by trying to placate the incoming president. We have to stand up for our country and for our province and insist on respectful treatment. And I think that's what the Premier has in mind.
We will leave it there for today. And I thank you for joining us, Geoff.
Thank you.
Take care. Geoff Meggs, former city councillor in Vancouver. And we want to note we did reach out to several ABC councillors, but they were not available to speak with us today.